The goblins of Moria aren't the only ones who communicate with sounds of drums in the deep. In the depths of the forest on the borders of Rohan and Gondor, a race of men live, few and secretly, and as wild and wary as the beasts. But wary does not mean submissive, especially when hated orcs are involved. Woses, or wild men of Druadan, are led by their chief, Gan Buri Gan. And though keen to be left to their ways, the Woses offer their help to the riders of Rohan to help them reach the Pelennor fields in time. There is a forgotten road through the trees of the Druadan, built by Gondorians, but it's not forgotten by the Wildmen. With their waymarkers, the Wildmen help Theoden and play their part in the victory of the War of the Ring.
Let's talk Woses, because in the last edition you saw them hiding behind enemy lines, poking through with their spear supports or using blowpipes to generally harass the enemy, and hiding of course with their stalk unseen or elven cloaks or whatever they were called back then. But now, I honestly can't think of the last time I saw them in a competitive army. Well, now their time is finally here, because I'm going to be showing you how to use the wild men of the Druadan forest in a competitive setting. But first, let's talk miniatures. So Games Workshop's painted them in a slightly tanned complexion, but I wanted to do something a little bit different, because they're not in the movies, we're not tied to the canon, as it were. So I wanted to do something, paint them in a really nice dark skin tone. So I started by being inspired by the Fulani tribe in Nigeria. Using that, I painted them a very dark brown skin tone. Starting with dryad bark, I painted the whole of the skin in that, then washed it with purple. Unusual, any purple wash or ink will do, but it really deepens and gives a sense of richness to that dark skin tone. And then after that, I highlighted with Gorthor brown. Now, the models may look a bit dated and a little flat at times, but I think they're really full of character. They've got dynamic red face paints and colourful gemstones, and even just the contrast between the skin and the bone-coloured or straw kind of skirt things that they're wearing. I think it really creates a really cool, contrasting set of colours that I think work really well. I'm really glad at how well these guys came out. I even made a trio of objective markers or waypoints, which I'll go into later on. All I used for those was the plastic bits of the Rohan house model from Games Workshop and some lollipop sticks, but you could probably just get away with just bits of balsa wood to make a little sign and then grass it up in the same way as the rest of the bases. So, you've seen how I've made these models look nice for the battlefield. How do they play on the battlefield? First, let's start with how to build the army. So let's talk alliances. Now, there's a butt ton of options here for yellow alliances. But of course, you're limited to just Gan and 15 of his followers, 15 of the Woses or the Wild Men of Druadan. Because of the way the army list is built, there's only one hero, and you gain the bonus of being able to store them all on their own in their separate warbands, only when you've got a green alliance. So we're limited to that, but that's not terrible. Some of the combinations could be quite good. So, for example, 15 guys with spears that aren't particularly strong and relatively cheap, a little bit pricey, but relatively cheap, could work well with, say, I don't know, the Shire. Spears, they've got bonuses for wounding against orcs, goblins, and urukai. Not too bad. Blowpipes work really well in combination, perhaps with throwing stones or the bows of the Shire. I think this is potential. But at 9 points and only strength 3, defense 3, fight 3, they're a bit pricey. And I mean, not just a bit pricey, they're very pricey for what you get. They do have some obvious special rules like the hatred rules I mentioned, and also the Stalk Unseen and Woodland Creature, which again work quite well with hobbits. But, I mean, are they really going to give you an extra boost, something that really gives you killing power in a hobbit list? For the value, maybe you'd be better off with just an extra couple of hobbits. I don't know. You could also, actually, you could combine these with Wood Elves. Wood Elves often doing that kind of skirmishy list with the throwing weapons, the low defense, the elven cloaks. You could potentially, if you want to squeeze in a couple of these cheap guys, blowpipes, poison blowpipes are good, 12-inch range, so they're a bit longer than the daggers. Nice complement there. You've got the Fight 5 from the elves, so maybe you could fit them in there. But I'll be completely honest, these are very, very tricky models to work with, and even in those alliances where they could be quite fun and interesting additions, and unthematic ones at that, they're not going to be the best. They're not going to be very easy to play. It's certainly not a beginner's army, and the models themselves are very tricky to use. When done right, they could be very good. But in those yellow alliances, I'd say probably give them a miss. Maybe the Shire, maybe. I'd give it a go. So, who do we really want to call to be allies with the Wild Men of Druadan? No.
Rohan will answer.
That's more like it. Yes, green allies with Rohan. So you do get your, well, admittedly naff army bonus, which is essentially that the Woses or the Wild Men of Druadan, they undermine the Stalk Unseen of enemy troops, which A is corner case, and B is mostly against good armies, I think, so not ideal. Elves, of course, Stalk Unseen with the Elven Cloaks, and people like the Fellowship. I suppose there are some evil ideas, like the Morgul Stalkers, for example, have Elven Cloak or Stalk Unseen, but it's going to be very niche, and like I say, more often against good armies than not. So that's not great. The Green Alliance, not particularly useful, especially when Rohan is more commonly known for riding to battle. So spear supporting guys that are meant to be hiding somewhere, probably not the best option. Although I suppose with, say, Grimbold and some Helmingus or something like that, that could be an interesting combination. But the changes to Stalk Unseen compared to the last edition have made them significantly less powerful, because before you could just hide them behind a line with Stalk Unseen and the enemy wouldn't be able to see them. Now you have to be behind terrain instead. So where we're talking now of the actual power of the Wild Men of the Druadan is definitely in the paths of the Druadan. Now Gambling has taken an FAQ nerf, this legendary legion is actually pretty cool and pretty janky. It might even be the best way to play Rohan if you're interested in playing as a competitive player, because it plays a bit differently. It plays a bit more like the traditional or old-style skirmishy Rohan, which is really cool. But first things first, you've got attacks. You've got to have Ganberry Gan and 15 Woses, which is really irritating because Games Workshop only sells them in packs of 12 Woses with Ganberry Gan. So either you have to split your box with some friends so that 4 of you can start a legion and you get a lot of extra Gans, or you can buy them off eBay at extortionate prices, you can pick them up elsewhere, or maybe like me, you have a very friendly Australian who's willing to send you 3 spares. Thank you very much, Jeremy. So maybe you can work it out, but either way, GW, you need to sort that out. You also have to take Theoden. Now, I suppose why wouldn't you? I mean, he's a hero of legend, but he's actually really a mid-tier hero, about 100 points. He's got strike, he's got high strength, he's got riders, he buffs other rider friends, and he's really good. He's a great hero. So there you go, that's the start of your legion. 200 points for your 15 Woses in Ganberry Gan, 100 points for Theoden, and you have to take him with the armoured horse, I believe. You have to take him with that. So either way, it's 100 points, which is perfect. So 300 points in total. Is that a decent army at 300 points? Maybe. You've got something along the lines of, well, you've got 17 models, you've got 15 blowpipes, 16 blowpipes, and Theoden, you've got a striker, you've got all that. So maybe it's good. Even with a banner, like one extra at 350 points, a rider with a banner or something like that, I think you've got a decent 350 point army list, but maybe not. It'd be a bit not very resilient, let's put it that way. But I think where this list really shines is between the points levels of around 600 and 800 points, and specifically those two. At 600 points, you can fit in about 30 models, along with Theoden, Gamling, or maybe AMR, but at 600, I'd probably go with Gamling actually, especially in this list, and I'll go into that reason later. Even after the nerf to mighting, the banner of magical might, Gamling is really, really useful for those right moves. It's just keeping your might flow going really nicely. So I'd like to keep him in this list, and I'll explain a bit more on that later. And at 800 points, I'd put Elfhelm in the list. And his throwing spear is really going to complement the way this army is going to work really nicely with its shooting capability. So I'd definitely throw Elfhelm in there. He's a good hero. He's strong. He's relatively cheap at 75 points or so. And that, alongside a few Riders of Rohan, extra Royal Guard thrown in here, there and everywhere, makes up for about 39-40 models at my tally. I'm sure you could maybe squeeze an extra couple if you wanted to, maybe a few less if you wanted to max out a bit more on Royal Guard, but I'd make sure you've got plenty of bows in this list because they're absolutely crucial. So now we've built this army list, how do we actually use it on the field? We all know and love the charge of the Rohirrim, and the Riders of Theoden Legendary Legion in the game work exactly like that. But charging 15 Defense 3 Woses alongside your Riders, well, yeah, okay, the Riders might do some damage, but alongside those Riders, it's not going to be a good idea. This Legion is not going to work like that. And the clue really is that you lose the +1 strength bonus to your Riders of Rohan, or to everyone on the charge. So Theoden's not getting it, AMR's not getting it. That's why I don't include him, because AMR is a killing hero, and I think we want to play to the list's strengths, or the Legion's strengths here. So this, for me, is definitely going to work very much like the old style of Riders of Rohan that you used to use in the previous edition of the game, the Hobbit edition of the game, where people were more skirmishing, plenty of shooting the bows, keeping back, throwing spears, harassing the enemy, circling around them, irritating them, and using those Woses as a kind of core of that, as a 12-inch bubble of re-rolling poison blowpipes at strength 2. That is powerful, that is really, really useful, and that is going to be playing to your strengths here. So if you have enough Riders of Rohan in your army list, so say 2/3 or so, that's where I'd aim for, 2/3 of the mounted options at the very least, and you've got a lot of bows. So you want to start by shooting and harassing the enemy, you know, chipping away at people like banners, at heroes' mounts, crucial against the Riders of Rohan to take away, to make sure you've got the charge bonus. So get rid of other people's mounts, other cavalry, get rid of their horses, that sort of stuff. And banners and other key targets, maybe the weaker spear supports, that sort of stuff. Just continually harassing, chipping away at these heroes, chipping away at this damage, getting all these things, and bringing the enemy towards you, bringing them over towards you. And because for every turn that you're shooting at them, and say you've got 2/3 of the army, which is going to be around 20 or so models at 800 points, shooting bows, you're going to get, what's that? There's, say, 1/3 of them hit for moving, so yeah, you're looking at, doing maths on the spot, like 12 or something like that hits, and then you're getting 2 wounds, hopefully. 2 wounds a turn. That's good. That's not bad. 2 wounds a turn, it's enough to pull people in. And obviously, if you've got more shots, then better. If you get lucky, great. Or if you're having a good matchup against something a bit lower defense, even better. But so you're pulling people in. That's the idea. And then once they close to that gap, that 12-inch gap, you've got an extra 15, 16 Woses firing. One Gambarian has got might as well, so don't be afraid to use that to chip away at a horse or whatever. So those re-rolling wounds on everything, poison blowpipes, these are brilliant stuff. So we're chipping away, we're keeping doing this sort of stuff. And then they move into that next gap where you've got the throwing spears on top of that. So you've got more strength 3 shots, and this is just piling, this is snowballing into a real death ball that people really desperately want to close that gap. And then you go, no, I'm going to move back. That's what you do, just move back, get out of that zone, You're still going to be able to shoot with your Woses, the blowpipes still work, excellent. So they're moving back, they're still shooting. The throwing spears, they're still shooting. The bows, they're still going to be in range. You can do this, move back 5 inches, and you're going to be able to keep pushing it back until you find the right opportunity to charge. And the things that are going to help you massively here are your waypoints. So, I mentioned earlier, you craft these nice little waypoint tokens. You put them in your terrain, 3 points of terrain across the battlefield. I definitely recommend having one in the centre on your side, maybe there's a woods or something like that on your side, or something similar. Obviously it won't always work, but most boards have a bit of terrain that you can use to your advantage. And there, you sit in front of it, you shoot, you charge, you shoot, you're enticing people over, you're saying, come at me, bro. And then you go, bam, straight through the terrain, and they're like, whoa, what the hell are you doing? You can't move through terrain, you're a horse. And you go, haha, but I've got a waypoint. So it's all good. You're moving back and you're just deceiving people. This exciting charge moment where you just pull it back and everyone thinks you're going to charge. You're going to be like, Rohan, death! And all that sort of stuff. But no, you're not. You're going to be harassing constantly. And that's how I see this army working. In particular, Gamling with his banner of magical might. So you can call that heroic move. And you get another bonus. You get another bonus in this legion, which is that on a 3+, you win the heroic move off. So it's like the Elven Blade equivalent of heroic moves in this legion. It's really, really useful. This is really very useful for riders of Rohan. You've got unlimited might on Gamling, and you're more likely to win heroic move-offs. So you can pull back, and you can get the charge when you want it, which is really, really good. So this is what you're going to be doing. You're pulling back until you've killed everything you think you need to, or you've gotten like over a certain point where you think, right, okay, now I can charge forward, and people won't expect it. They won't know what to do. They won't know what to do. So you're charging forward. You're piling in. You've not got any strength bonuses, but you do get to reroll wounds against reroll. I think it's wands against orcs and goblins and urukai, and you get +1 to wound those guys from the Woses themselves because they already hate them. So this is getting pretty good, especially in a good versus evil matchup. So that's what I would recommend. And obviously there's other upsides to this army. You've got a plenty amount of models that can hide, so great for objective grabbing. You've got movement, great for launching forward, going to the for a recon mission or getting to the prize, that sort of stuff. Obviously got to be adaptable, but I think this could be really good. I think it's got a lot of potential. So obvious downsides with this list are that, let's be honest, it's not going to be great against every single army. It'll be pretty good against orcs, goblins, urukai. I think that's a given. It will really struggle though in green on green matchups. So good versus good. It's going to struggle against elves in particular, wood elves even more in particular, because they just do what this army does, but perhaps a little bit better without as much punch. I think this is more versatile than that army, but it's not going to be able to compete in the kind of skirmishy stuff. It's also definitely not going to compete against Corsairs, who've got a huge amount of killing power at a massive range, and even more killing power at a very short range. So, I mean, you will still be able to manage, but you'll just have to adapt your list quite a lot, strategy a lot, when playing against those kinds of armies. The other things you're going to struggle against are magic. Now, it's not going to be as bad as facing up against a sort of Gandalf-led list or whatever as the Riders of Theoden Legendary Legion, because you're not relying so heavily on your heroes to be big hitters. They're more kind of might caddies to allow your shooting and your kind of troops to do a lot of the work. So there's that bonus. But of course, you're still going to struggle against anything that's going to try and launch horses at you, put blinding light up, or anything like that. So it's going to be a bit of a difficulty. But the great thing about this army compared to, say, Wood Elves or another traditional shooting army is you do still have a lot of cavalry, and they're not bad. Strength 3 cavalry are still really good cavalry. They're still able to hit a punch. They're strength 3 on the charge, or fight 4 or fight 5, depending on whether they're Royal Guard or Riders of Rohan. And you've got throwing spears as well, so you're going to be launching them into combats and stuff, so you will get more kills than the average cav. So this is good. So I think this might actually have the potential to be a competitive list. Is it going to win all of the tournaments? I don't know. But I think between 600 and 800 good versus evil tournaments, this could be a really, really tough army to face up against, especially against or in the hands of a very good player, so probably not me. But I'm intrigued at what you think. Is this the new way to play Rohan? Is this going to be taking over the new meta for Rohan? Is it going to be replacing the Riders of Theoden Legendary Legion because of that gambling nerf has just gone too far? I don't know. Maybe. Could you see the Paths of the Druadan on top tables at tournaments? Is it possible? Comment below. I'm really intrigued at what you think of my logic behind all this and my argument and my case for. But now the prosecution will rest, and hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and if you do enjoy this kind of video, I'm hoping to do more of this sort of tactical kind of in-depth on something. There'll be fewer and far between because it puts a lot of effort, a lot of photography has gone into this to make it look special. But if you do like this sort of stuff, comment below, like it, share it. And also, feel free to support me on Patreon. If you head to patreon.com/battlegamesinmiddle-earth, the name of the channel, then please do feel free to pledge what you like. And from there, you can be entered into competitions. I give away freebies. I've got some dice going out to patrons very soon. And also, you get to influence what I do by just direct messages and all that sort of stuff. And I will take your thoughts and your interest and what you want from me as a content producer, for podcaster or YouTuber, into account. So thanks very much for watching. Feel free to listen to Entmoot as well, the podcast new episode not long gone up after this video has been released. And in the meantime, enjoy yourself, and thanks very much for watching.